What's up everyone, Cushy here, and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be going over a balance change to the Evil Dead, which released today on June 20th, which basically nerfed a bunch of the survivors and buffed the demons. So we'll be going over each of these changes, and then we'll give our opinions on what we think of these changes. So to start things off, we'll go over these survivor changes. So the very first changes that they made were to the Hunter. Hunter's got a decent nerf. First of all, Hunter's stamina regen got nerfed. This changed from 35 stamina points per second to 20 stamina points per second. Keep in mind, this does not change the amount of stamina that you have or the amount used, but only the regeneration speed. So this means while you're not running or dodging and your stamina bar is refilling, this will be a little bit slower. Now out of combat, this isn't going to make a big difference, but within combat, when you are actively dodging, this helps out demons a lot, especially since some hunters, with their crazy amount of stamina, can basically dodge all of the demons' attacks. With this change, demons now have a chance to run the hunter's stamina bar down and get an opening to get some hits in. This change is definitely needed, as in some cases, as a demon it's not even worth it to go for these hunters, so this kind of just evens the playing field. Alright, next change. The revive time from the bleeding out state changes from 3 to 4 seconds. Now this is probably the biggest change out of this whole patch. 1 second may not feel like a lot, but during combat this will make a huge difference. Again, another change heavily favored for the demons, as it's really easy as a demon to interrupt that revive animation. Next up is another stamina nerf. At upgrade 4, stamina cost reduction percent changes from 50 to 40%. Not a huge change, but with the other stamina nerf, just keep in mind that you'll be having less stamina throughout the match. Alright, next, and probably one of the most needed changes, is that the boss headshot damage multiplier for all bosses changes from 1.5 to 1.25. Most likely, if you're playing demon, you've probably been against a whole team of hunters, and once you target one person, everyone else shoots you in the head and you go down immediately. Now a 0.25 difference to the headshot multiplier isn't that much, but they did need to nerf it somehow, because pre-patch, some hunters, especially Kelly, could basically two-shot headshot a boss. As a boss that mainly uses melee, dealing with hunters is pretty hard. I honestly think this might be a little bit too little of a change, but I think this nerf is a good starting point. Alright, next up are the character abilities. First up for the leaders, Leader Ash, El Jefe, the aura range bonus damage changed from 10 to 15. For Annie, the Howitzer, the aura bonus range damage changed from 10 to 25. This is the biggest jump and might be a little bit too much, as it might negate some of the hunter nerfs, but honestly I haven't seen many Annies being played, so this might make her a lot more viable. Next up, Lord Arthur got a nerf for Lord's Wrath. Melee bonus damage changed from 30 to 20%. We'll have to do more testing for this, but it was pretty crazy pre-patch that some warriors with the Lord's Wrath buff could one-shot fully upgraded basic units, so I'm not sure if there's a breakpoint there where it might require 2 hits. I kinda doubt it, but we'll have to see if this makes a difference. Next up for Warrior Ash, who is arguably one of the best warriors in class, got some nerfs. The shield blast damage explosion changed from 200 to 125. Just some nerf to some free no skill damage, so this is understandable. For Wiseman's Potion, duration changed from 25 seconds to 20 seconds, and the cooldown changed from 60 to 80 seconds. Also, the damage reduction changed from 50 to 30%. The thing that's gonna hurt the most is that cooldown change from 60 to 80 seconds. 20 seconds is kind of a long time, especially during a fight. Sometimes you can get maybe 2 or 3 off, but the amount of times you can do it within a fight will definitely be reduced. Seeing as this is one of Warriors Ash's biggest boosts to damage, it is understandable, but honestly I don't think Warriors really needed any kind of nerf at all, but I do think that this makes Lord Arthur a lot more viable. Through most of the games I've played, leaders are probably one of the least picked class, and I do believe that a lot of these changes to basically self-buff yourself really does make leaders a lot more viable. I really like how healers are pretty important and impactful within the game, and I really hope that leaders have that same importance, which might be the case now with these changes. Alright, next change is to Hunter Ash. The Exorcist skill cooldown changed from 60 to 90 seconds, and the Infernal Energy reduction percent changed from 15 to 20. I 100% agree with this change. Hunter Ash's Exorcist ability is hands down the best ability in the game, especially beginning to mid part of the game, which is the demon's most important part to level up and gain points, can be totally negated with Hunter Ash's Exorcist ability. So that cooldown from 60 to 90 seconds is a really nice change. On top of that, they compensated so that when you do use it, it hits that 5% harder, which I think is really useful because you want to be using it in very specific situations instead of just throwing it out whenever you can. Alright, next up, Ed Getley. It's a trap cooldown change from 60 to 90 seconds. I think Ed's It's a Trap ability isn't one of the strongest ones in the game because if you are being careful, you can actually see a distortion in space and see traps. And then once you see it, you can basically just go around and take another exit from building or something. So I've never actually found his ability that useful, but he actually got a buff to his skill, the Collector, which increases the probability to find higher rarity loot boxes. Now this is the main reason you're going to be picking Ed. Better gear means faster DPS and more pink F that you're going to be getting to level up your character. That's honestly his only use, but still a very good one at least. Alright, next up for Kelly, we get a nerf to Battle Frenzy. This ability that increases your melee damage the longer you are in combat got changed from 2% to 1%. This honestly doesn't give us much. This could mean that this buff stacks up slower, but the cap still remains the same, or it could just mean that it stacks up to half the amount. We gotta do more testing on this, but just keep this in mind. Next up, a change to Cheryl. The range for the healing area when drinking Shemps got reduced from 6 to 5 meters. I think if you're used to playing healers other than Cheryl, this is not much of a difference as you're kinda already used to standing right next to the other players, but it definitely makes you be a little bit more mindful on when you're healing and to whom. Alright, next up we got changes to specific skills. First up is a nerf to Last Chance. This gives an increased damage for the last bullet in the gun. Most important thing to note is that level 4 it changes from 30% to 20%. I've got to say that the Last Chance skill is kind of a nice to have skill instead of something you actively try to use. A lot of the one-shot weapons like the blunderbuss, the crossbow, I'd say are pretty weak as far as other weapons go. The crossbow is just kind of hard to aim, and the blunderbuss kind of just has a really long reload speed, so I really haven't found myself using them that much. So this mostly affects other guns that you'll be using. I actually think this skill is not worth it to use anymore. During fights, I mostly do not take full advantage of this skill, as I do find myself reloading before the last bullet. I think it's more important to reload during safe times rather than just to proc this skill. So I do think that I will be re-speccing into other skills. Next up, damage up close. At 16.4 meters, the damage now got reduced to 20%. Now, unlike Last Chance, this is something that you get pretty much for free. In most cases, you will be within that 16.4 meters, mostly so you don't get damage fall off, and because you need to stay within a certain objective. The skill is really easy to proc, and you don't have any trade-offs. So that 5% isn't that much, so definitely something I'll still keep, and shouldn't make that much of a difference. Next up, we got a nerf to the skill Staying Power. This increases your maximum stamina, so level 3 changed from 25 to 15%. Now this is a pretty impactful nerf, again in combination with all of the other stamina nerfs, especially to hunters. All of these little changes in all different areas might have a decent impact. Alright, so with mostly survivor nerfs, we also get buffs to the Kandarian demon. I'd say this is very much needed. In most cases, if a survivor team is playing as a team, there is nothing a demon player could really do. So demons really did need a buff in some way. So in this patch, Infernal Energy Regeneration changes from 15 points per second to 20 points per second during a Necronomicon phase. Now I really like this change as it only applies to the Necronomicon phase. I'd say 9 times out of 10. If the survivors do reach the Necronomicon phase, there's pretty much nothing the demon could do. During this phase, the survivors have the most amount of points, so this does balance it out just a little bit more. Alright, we're going to speed through these changes a little bit. The Skeleton Elite Arms health was changed from 100 to 200, so you'll be getting dismembered just a little bit less. Possession level 5 extra health with possessed units changed from 40 to 50%. Possessed Survivor headshot bonus multiplier to other survivors changed from 1.7 to 1.2. Possessing Hunters will still be pretty good, but this makes it just a little bit less crazy. Possessed Elite Deadites health changes from 2,800 to 3,000. Possessed Elite Skeleton health changed from 2,000 to 2,250. Possessed Berserker health changed from 1300 to 1500. Elites kind of suck, and basics units are pretty much the way to go, so this is a nice change, and we'll see if it's good. Next up, car possession maintain energy cost changed from 0.5 seconds to 0.3 seconds, as well as the car possession energy cost changed from 100 to 60. Now pre-patch, possessing cars was kind of useless. It was such a waste of energy, and survivors can easily get you out of that possession, making you basically waste a bunch of energy. Hopefully this makes it a lot more useful to possess cars and stall survivors even more. Cars right now are super strong in the game for survivors, so getting survivors out of the car might be more useful. Finally, we got an increase to arm dismemberment resistance for elite skeletons. For individual changes to specific demons, we basically got buffs to the stun time and the balance bars. Puppeteer basics went from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, stun time for elites went from 2.5 to 1.5, and balance bar went up from 230 to 330, and 450 to 550. For Warlord's basic units, stun time changes from 1.5 to 1 second, elite from 1.5 to 1 second, and boss from 2 to 1.5 seconds. This is pretty crazy as 1 second is not that much. For balance bars, basic units went up from 300 to 400, elites 525 to 625, and boss 800 to 900. Finally, for Necromancer, basic stun times went from 1.5 to 1, elite 2 to 1.5, and boss 2 to 1.5. Bounce bar for basics went from 350 to 400, elites 500 to 550, and boss from 700 to 800. Now with all these buffs to stun times and balance bars, it will be even more important to max out survivors' balance bar buffs, as they will be stunned a lot less. And again, with these stamina nerfs, it's going to be a lot harder to dodge all the enemy's attacks, again making it easier for the demon to land those hits. Now overall, I think these are wonderful changes. Depending if you are playing as a team or if you're solo queuing as a survivor, you might have a different stance on these balance changes. For team play and if you're communicating with your team, these are awesome changes, especially to boost the power of the demons. But in the case when you aren't communicating and you're just solo queuing, you might see a lot more steamrolls as demon. So just keep in mind, use your ping system when you need to, hop in chat if other people are talking, and just play your role and be a good team player. With that, that's all the changes that got put into the game on June 20th. Let me know what you guys think about the changes down below in the comment section. Do you like these changes or do you dislike them? I hope you guys are excited for new content with that new map and possibly new weapons in the game. As always, thank you guys for watching and hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.